At this point in the season, we've seen enough from each player and team to make a sound judgment on how they're progressing, how they look at the moment, where they need to improve, and whether or not they're legit contenders or not. For the top players playing on struggling teams, there are definitely instances where you can't help but feel bad for them, and if things continue on this path, then a trade could end up being the best move for both parties. This brings us to the topic of today's video, where we'll be discussing 4 big-name NBA players that desperately need to be traded in order to salvage their seasons and prove that they can contribute to the success of a contender if given the opportunity, as right now, the situations that they're currently in aren't exactly the greatest. Before we start though, it turns out about 67% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first big-name NBA player that desperately needs to be traded is the most obvious one on the entire list that I think everybody has come to agree upon in recent weeks, being Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. So this offseason, the Wizards made a lot of noise when they traded away John Wall in exchange for Russell Westbrook, and after being without Wall for about 2 seasons, bringing in Westbrook was seen as a move that would push them into playoff contention. Beal had taken massive strides as an individual in that span. He was one of the leading scorers in the NBA last year, and he even demonstrated his loyalty to the franchise by signing an extension with them, hoping that some of the moves they made around him would pay off on the court. Well, so far it's been nothing short of a disaster, and after every game you can literally see the frustration on Beal's face grow further and further. The Wizards are currently having the worst record in the entire NBA with only 3 wins and 12 losses, and this is despite the fact that Bradley Beal is currently leading the NBA in points per game this year, averaging about 35 a night. He has the worst record of all time in games where he scores at least 40 points, compared to all of the other great players that have scored 40 points in games as often as he has, which is absolutely wild to think about, and there really doesn't seem to be any immediate solutions to this team's problems. Their defense is a mess, Russell Westbrook is struggling to stay healthy, and they don't have any major assets to swing for a big trade. Contenders will definitely be interested in him as the deadline approaches for trades, and if they don't start to win some games, it might be in the best interest of both parties to go their separate ways. The next big-name player that desperately needs a trade to help salvage his career is Lonzo Ball of the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, I realize that when you hear the phrase big name, you tend to think of star players, and Lonzo Ball is definitely not a star by any means, but I don't think it's arguable that he is a big name in the league, in the sense that he's had a ton of hype around himself throughout, and people still pay close attention to him and his performances as a player. This was a big season for Lonzo coming in, as he was coming in slowly progressing in each of his first 3 seasons, but now in year 4, many were ready for him to take the leap towards taking the reins of the offense and really imposing himself on games more consistently, and instead, we've seen him decline as a player. The progress he showed with his perimeter shooting has taken a step back from a year ago. He's not creating for those around him quite as much as his assists per game have taken a big dip, and his overall efficiency still isn't anything to be proud of. Some of this obviously is on Lonzo, but the thing is that the system that new head coach Stan Van Gundy is running for the Pelicans also just doesn't seem to play to his strengths really at all. Lonzo is very much an up-tempo creator that's at his best in space when he's able to speed the game up, and especially with young rising stars like Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram around him, many expected the Pelicans to push the pace a lot, but instead, Van Gundy has them slowing the game down a lot, ranking in the bottom half of the league in pace. There have already been some trade rumors regarding Lonzo being available, and it does seem like it would be best for both parties to try to get some value in return for him while sending him to a team that maybe plays a bit faster. The next big-name player that I think desperately needs a change of scenery is Zach LaVine of the Chicago Bulls. LaVine has really developed into a top-tier scorer and overall offensive juggernaut over the last few seasons, while the Bulls teams around him have not done that. People used to nitpick LaVine's shot selection, his efficiency, his defense, and his one-dimensional playstyle, and in response, he's improved a ton in every one of those areas to the point where he's now a ridiculously efficient 3-level scorer. He's averaging a career-high assists this year as well. He's not the complete liability he used to be on defense, and he's actually pretty versatile overall, as he's scoring 27 points per game as a result of this. His situation is actually quite similar to Bradley Beal's, in that he's entering the prime of his career, playing his best basketball at 25 years old right now, and still many more highly productive years are to come, but they seem to be being wasted in Chicago. He's never made a playoff appearance in his career to this point, which is something that obviously drives him, as it does for every top player, and his patience may be running out too. The Bulls aren't looking to trade him for now, and if they string together a win streak and put themselves back on the playoff radar, maybe it will stay that way. But if they don't, he's going to be a hot commodity as the trade deadline approaches, because his scoring prowess is going to be highly sought after. And finally, the last big-name player in need of a trade right now is Andre Drummond of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Drummond is currently playing the best basketball of his life, posting a career high in points, once again leading the NBA in rebounds as he's done 4 times already in his career, and defensively, he's been phenomenal on the inside, holding things down and helping the Cavaliers surprisingly rank as one of the best defenses in the league so far this season. There have always been debates over how good Drummond actually is, as once you look past some of his ridiculously impressive statistics, you see that it hasn't always translated to impacting his team winning games, and his play does tend to fly under the radar a good bit, especially because of the fact that he's been playing for the Pistons and now the Cavaliers for his entire career, 2 teams that have never really gotten much media attention outside of when LeBron was a Cavalier, but at this point, he could undoubtedly help shore up a contending team in need of interior defense and rebounding. There have already been some rumors about Drummond being available for a trade, with the Cavaliers looking towards the future after acquiring young center Jarrett Allen from the Nets, and funnily enough, the Nets could very well be the prime target for Drummond, as DeAndre Jordan seems to be very washed at this point in his career, and their defense has been quite porous this season, especially at the rim. There's also been talks of buying him out, but I don't really think that's the best idea for the Cavs to take a hit like that on his huge contract for the future, but either way, Drummond could be on his way to a top team soon. While his massive numbers may be a bit misleading, I do believe that in an ideal situation, he could definitely fit into a more limited role well alongside creators, and his rebounding and defensive prowess would help anywhere, so we'll see what happens, I guess. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below where you think these 4 players could go in trades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.